guys, today we'll be doing LeetCode 3761. This is the daily problem for today, 17th of April. Now it is classified as a medium on LeetCode, and I'll start off with the question first. Like what does the question want? The question just wants us to find a pair, right? I not equal to j such that, so since we have this nums array, right, and if we pick out a number from there, the reverse of that number is equal to some other position in the array. So kind of like equating 12 and 21, 54 and 45, right? Taken them from the example, and all we have to do is just store the absolute difference and just get the minimum of that. So the most minimum that we could find. So the most possible minimum would be 1, because I cannot be equal to j, right? And if no pair exists, then we would return -1. Now I'll start off with the example here. Nums as 12, 21, 45, 33 and 54. If we wrote down the indexes for each, 1, 2, 3, 4, reverse of 12 and 21 would be equal. So 12 and 21 is a pair. We would consider the ij. We would say 0, 1. The distance is only 1. The next pair is 45 and 54, 2 and 4. We would consider their distance to be 2, but 1 and 2, minimum of them, we get 1. That's why the answer is 1. Okay, now if you do the brute force approach on this question, O of n squared, right, we hit the TLE essentially. We will hit the time limit exceeded. How do we, well, I'll show the brute force first. So the brute force is pretty simple. The one thing I'll do with this question is I'll define a helper function. So I'll define like a reverse x that will take our integer. This is the shorthand in Python, so we would convert it to a string, and then we would simply cast it back into an integer and return the string reversed. Okay, if you have it in C or whatever language, just look up the way to typecast, right? Or like there will be like a function that you can use. Just use that and make this function first, I would say. It reduces the clutter in your code. Now for picking the answer, okay, I'll draw the array out again. 21, 45, 33 and 54. We'll hold a pointer to 12, so we would do a for I in range right. We have a for I in range. We've held 12 over here. We would say the target now, right, what nums j has to be equal to is essentially the reverse of nums I. So in this case, this would return to us as 21, this value over here. Our target is now 21. We would simply run another for loop for j in range I plus 1 through len nums, and this would essentially just loop through this part, okay, for now, and then we would see if nums j is equals to the target. Then we can do the distance as absolute I minus j, and then we can have our answer be minimum current value and the distance. We could write the answer to be float infinity initially, because we're trying to minimize it. So we'll write it as float infinity, and by the end of this loop you would have an answer. So if you did not get a pair, then you would simply say if answer is still equal to float infinity return -1, return answer, right? But the issue with this is, first off, O of n squared, right? Constant memory, but O of n squared, and that's what causes the time limit exceeded. Now there's another way to do it. I'll give you a hint. It was in the LeetCode hints as well, but using a hash map, it is very similar to the two-sum pattern. You can take you can pause the video now if you don't want to listen to the answer, but I'm going to solve it now. So if you hold reverses, right, the one thing that actually I'll not do the answer straight away, we'll do this explanation. So if you have the same area as before, right, one thing you can note is that if we had 12 here, right, and reverse of 12 is 21, if the reverse of 12 is 21, could we technically have like a dictionary that stores the reverse of the number first? So if we had 12, we would make it 21, and that's what would go into our dictionary, and we would also keep a track of the index that it was at, so that the next time when you do hit the equivalent, right, you would just simply check, is 21 in my hash map over here, and you would see that it is. And since you're doing a one pass, your indexes would never equal, so you would never be worried about this. All you would have to do now is the index that you're at minus the value in that dictionary, the absolute value of that, and then minimize it. That's all you have to do. So 21 would come across as this. We would store 12. After that, we would get our answer to be 1 right now. Then we would go for 45. We would actually store 54 instead. 33 as 3, doesn't really matter, we don't get anything equal to that. And then when we hit 54, we will see 54 is in the array, but this time we're at index 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. That won't change the answer, but we will store it as 45 and put it on index 4, right? Now the trade-off is we are using O(n) space with this, but time is 1 pass, so we only need to do one iteration of the loop, one iteration of the array. And in code this would look like reverses equals to, you can name it anything, right, and answer still infinity. Okay, now to keep track of both the index and the number, the best way obviously is to do enumerate, right? You can do a simple for loop, put n equals to nums I and I as just the I, so for I in range, but you can do for I and enumerate nums, right? This way, and we make use of the same function we had before, the reverse. Okay, so if n in the hash map, like I said, the first thing we'll do is distance as the absolute I that we are on right now, and reverses n, so that's the value in the dictionary. Answer would just be minimum of that, distance and answer. And in the, so our reverse number will be reverse on this number, and then we would store it in the dictionary, like I said, as the reverse version. So we would just do reverse r being the index that we are at right now, and the same check as before. If answer is still infinity, return -1, or just return the answer. So we cut down on the time complexity, as you can see, single for loop, single iteration through the array, right? O of n space in the worst case scenario. And that's it. That's the solution for today.